Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillah. Wassalatu wassalamu ala Rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa man wala. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you very much for this kind invitation from this esteemed university, Skudar University, under the able leadership of Professor Dr. Tarhan. I'm really grateful for the invitation, and my apologies for not speaking in Turkish. I hope to learn it sometime soon, inshallah. Now, this conference is about cosmology, and it is about cosmology in the light of science, and how it connects with spirituality and religiosity and other non-material things. We have heard some profound presentations by the previous speakers, and I'm grateful to all of them. And my talk is a bit philosophic and a bit into Kalam, ilm al-Kalam. And then I will come to contemporary physics, science and engineering, and so forth. Now, the world is full of things. And the science, or the branch of philosophy that studies the catalogs of things and kinds of things, is called ontology, the science of being or beings. This vast auditorium has a collection of things, and an ontology describing this auditorium and its contents, we try to classify the kind of things that are in this auditorium. There are some material things, like wood and plastic and so on. There are human beings. They're very different than mere things. As the philosopher Immanuel Kant says, that things are used for other purposes, but persons are for themselves. So there is a huge distinction between things and human beings. But even amongst things, there are different types of things. There are inert things like wood, like plastic, like the screen. But there are also artifacts, or more precisely, things that we look at as artifacts. So yes, there is this podium, for example, but as a thing, and I can study the chemical composition of the wood. I can study the mass of the podium by putting it on a scale. I can study the color by analyzing the light waves reflecting from the podium. But I can also study it as an artifact, as something made by someone. And when I study it as something made, a number of new factors come in. Most importantly, intentionality, what we call in Arabic qasd. This podium has the intentionality built into it. It's embedded into it, into the very makeup of this podium, the intentionality that it would be a good platform for people to speak from. So when we look at things as artifacts, new factors come in. Most importantly, intentionality and embedded intentionality. There is also another strange thing about some types of things. Most importantly, things that are signs for other things. For example, on this podium, I can't see it now, but I was seeing it when I was sitting. There is a sign that says Üsküdar University in Turkish. Okay? It also has the lighthouse, that's the symbol, it has the foundation date. This is a sign. It is a thing, but it is also a sign. And as sign, new factors come in. Most importantly, what we call in Arabic dilala, signification. There is a pointing to. This is not just a piece of wood. This is a piece of wood that points to a reality called the university, Uskudar University. So the amazing thing about this thing, which is the sign, is it tells you, don't stop at me, look at me in order to understand something else. So this sign is the thing that actually pushes you away from it to another concept. So it's an indicator, a signifier. So I can study things as things. I can study things as artifacts and bring in embedded intentionality. And I can study things as signs that point to other concepts or things or signs or processes or events. Why am I making all these very abstract distinctions? I make these distinctions because it makes a huge difference for cosmology. What kind of cosmos are we studying? Cosmology is the logos of cosmos. In Greek, the cosmos comes from the etymology that means order. Okay? Now we say cosmology as the science of the universe. When I am studying the universe, am I studying the universe as a collection of things? Am I studying the universe as a collection of artifacts? Or am I studying the universe as a collection of signs? I believe that the Muslim way of looking at things is to study the first way, the second way, and the third way. And the third way is the most important. Signs in Arabic are ayat. The cosmos is not just a mere collection of things. And it is actually an indicator. Every atom of it is an indicator of its divine origin, in the sense that Allah Azza wa Jal created it. So it's already a sign. It's already an artifact that there is hikmah or perfection in the way it's made. There is divine ilm manifested in the intricacy of the thing I am studying. There is qayyumiyah or divine sustenance in that it continues into existence. So when you look at the world, it's not just a mere looking. It depends on how it is that you look at the world. As Badi'ul Zaman Mursi rahmatullah alayhi once made the distinction between ma'na al-ismi and ma'na al-harfi. Do I study the thing in itself, or do I study it as indicating its divine originator? It makes a huge difference. So what is our position vis-a-vis contemporary cosmology, the cosmology that is studied in the Department of Physics? Well, it's a difficult question because there are multiple approaches to cosmology today. But a good thing is, cosmology has moved on from the early 20th century to this day, from a mechanistic cosmology that looks at just a collection of pebbles, of course, like for example, just a collection of mere things. We now speak of fields and field theory. We now speak of fields of forces. We speak of energy. We speak of waves. We speak of wave functions. The amazing thing about all these expressions is, on the one hand, they're not thingly. They're not like tables and chairs and stones and trees. Waves. But what are waves? What are waves? We study the mathematics of waves, sinusoidal and other types. We can have differential equations of waves. But what are waves? What are fields when we say fields? And we say fields of forces. What is a force? It's not very tangible, is it? On the other hand, its effects are very tangible. The effects of gravity are very tangible. You can sense it, but somehow you cannot see it. So what is energy? The Greeks invented this energia. We use the term as if it's obvious, but it's a non-thingly, non-perceived thing. Yes, we perceive waves of light, and in a sense we do see the energy, but somehow the notion of energy is quite problematic. If we look at the Quran and the Sunnah and the way ayat are addressed in the Quran and the Sunnah, we'll find that it is probably the most repeated term. Everything is ayah. The sun is ayah, the moon is ayah. But notice also in the Quran, the alterations of night and day are ayah. So processes are also ayah. Events, things that happen, are also types of ayat. It's very important to develop an ayatology where we classify the types of ayat we have, and then see how this ayatology, if you like, would be different from a scientistic, purely physicalist cosmology. How is it different? Let me begin with the notion of thing. Supposing when I came into this podium or into this auditorium, a student gave me this. And the student gave me this very politely, very politely. This is a thing, yes, but as a given, as a gift, as something which is given, the attitude of dealing with it differs completely. If I use it as a thing, or if I look at it as a thing, there is no emotional baggage. Okay? But if I see it as a gift from the student that gave it to me, there is already in me feelings of gratitude, shukr. There is feelings of humble receiving, tawadu'. There is feeling of, yes, I need this because I don't know Turkish and this is very much needed. There is already in me iftiqar. Okay? Notice, these things came in as factors because I am seeing this as a given, not just mere thing. So if I am a physicist, studying the stars and the sun and the planets and the waves and I am only seeing things, I am missing many, many things. I am missing many factors that make us human, that make us special. So ayatology is different from cosmology in that it sees the universe as a gift, as a given, not just a mere thing, okay? Which has implicated attitudes with it. Secondly, if I see this as a mere thing and not an artifact, certain things are completely absent. I can just see it as a thing. But if I see it as an artifact, I say, mashallah, what a great maker this Bush company is, you know? Look at how smooth this plastic is. Look at how soft this so it doesn't hurt the ear. Look at how long the wire is so I don't have to be awkwardly wearing it. There is already design in this. It's very different to look at the cosmos without design and to look at the cosmos with design in mind. When we Muslims look at the universe, we are supposed to look at it with view to the design and to the designer who designed it. The designer who designed it. That is why looking at a mere thing and not as an artifact, looking at it as a mere thing and not as an artifact, deprives you from looking for and seeing the creator who is behind the creation. So seeing an artifact means seeing design. And that is why sometimes the conversation between the atheists and the believers is like almost a dead end. Because the atheist sees things and when we see artifacts, we see masnu'at. And through the masnu'at we see the sana'. As Imam Ash'ari says in the beginning of his Luma', and as Imam Maturidi says in Kitab al-Tawheed, as we see the thing, we see the masnu'at. And because we see the masnu'at, we see the sana', the maker. So a cosmology that is devoid of a notion of design is too dry for us Muslims. We have to have an ayatology, or let me put it more precisely, we need a more spiritual cosmology, a richer cosmology, a cosmology that does not deprive us from design. Another thing about artifacts is artifacts are of two types. There are artifacts that are just there, like the table, okay? But there are artifacts that operate. This is now operating, okay? Engaging with the operational artifact is also different from an inert artifact. Why? Because you have to be attentive to the operations of what this thing does. For example, just let us continue with this example of this device. I can analyze the thing. This is an artifact, and I can analyze it. I can take it apart. And a lot of analysis happens in science. There are laboratories in this university where we take things apart, and we put them through machines, and we take them further apart. And that gives us vast knowledge. But it is totally useless knowledge when it comes to using it as a translation machine. If I do the chemistry of this and find that it's made of polyethylene, it will give me no assistance in understanding Turkish. To use it as a translation machine, I need to utilize it, or more precisely, to actualize it. Because, for example, if I am angry at someone and I throw it at them, I am utilizing it. But I'm not actualizing it as a translation machine. Okay? To actualize it, I have to be in alignment with what it was made for. So a Muslim who's doing ayatology or a richer cosmology should be trying to align their behavior with what the universe was made for. And it was made for ubudiyyah, for worshipping Allah Azza wa Jal. So if you utilize the universe for your own ego, that is like throwing this at someone. But if you appreciate this universe and actualize Allah's maqasid in it, what our fuqaha call the maqasid al-shar'iyyah, the shari intentionalities of this whole life, the preservation of life, the preservation of deen, the preservation of dignity, the preservation of descent and honor. These maqasid are embedded in the universe. A physicalist, mechanistic cosmology does not pay any attention to any of these things. But an ayatology, a cosmology that's deeper, must appreciate not only what this universe was made for, but align our behavior so that we actualize what it was made for and participate. As Professor Tarhan in The Pyramid of Maslow with the actualization, our actualization as in ubudiyyah, as abidullah, actually is the key to the transcendence towards true tawheed of Allah Azza wa Jal. So the looking at things in the universe as givens, looking at them as artifacts, and looking at them as indicators pointing to Allah Azza wa Jal, we begin to see the asma of Allah Azza wa Jal manifested in the very artifacts that we see around us. So when we see something beautiful, we can see His intricate making. When we see something well made, we see His hikmah. When we see His the sequence of processes, we see His tadbir. When we see the numerical abundance, we see His jood. We begin to see the asma manifested. And as our mashayikh say, we begin with the athar, we see the traces. And from the athar, we see the af'al, the divine acts. And from the af'al, we see the asma. And from the asma, we see the sifat. And that is our way to the that. And that is the way of ajiz. Because we, through the abundance of Allah Azza wa Jal, through His creativity and His generosity and His utter rahmah, we begin to realize our iftiqar, our nothingness. As Ahmad Rifa'i says, rahmatullahi alayh, la shillash, I am nothing of nothing. And to begin to receive the abundance of Allah, to receive the ata'ullah, وَمَا كَانَ عَطَاءُ رَبِّكَ مَحْظُورًا. It is limitless. You see it because now you're seeing the giving and not just mere things. So for our cosmology to become truly deep, we must realize that our cosmology must be an ayatology, and that the fields within contemporary science and the human sciences that are most conducive are things like information theory, where physicists are beginning to see that it is from bit, as they say. That things are actually from information. And information is nothing but a sequence of amr, sequence of commands. Algorithms are important. DNA is an algorithm. There can be no DNA and algorithm without a commander organizing those sequences. Okay? We begin to appreciate the fine-tunedness of the universe, that the gravitational constant is not just a constant by coincidence, that the cosmological constant, the rate at which the universe expands, is not a coincidence, that these fine-tunings and these directed intentionalities within the universe are indicative of a maker who is Hakim, Alim, Mudabbir, Qayyum. May Allah, inshallah, guide us to seeing the signs of Allah Azza wa Jal, to seeing things with the ma'na harfi rather than the just ma'na ismi, to see vectors and not just tensors, to see indicators and not just mere things, to see divine masnu'at and not just a bunch of things. And that is ayatology, which I hope is a richer cosmology. And I am very happy that this university is working very hard to integrate the latest in neurology, in science, in psychology, with the spirituality of this great country and this great civilization of ours. Thank you very much for your attention. Wa barakallahu.